Hello and welcome to The Passion Show. My name is Phil and joining me as always is my co-host Kyle.
Hello.
And this week we have a special guest, Cal.
Hi.
So in today's episode, we're talking about Pokemon. So Calum, you're a massive fan of Pokemon, are you not?
I am a massive fan of Pokemon. I've been there since the very beginning, back in the late 90s.
Nice.
Back when we were literally babies.
Yeah, I think I was born during Pokemania, is it called?
The Pokemon, yeah, it really kicks off when you were born. But yes, I do have a few years on you both.
So when you're talking about Pokemon, are you talking about like the main series of games, or does it encompass like the anime and the cards and stuff like that? Like which areas of it are you most interested in?
Oh, it absolutely encompasses all of the different media franchises that they've done, because you physically can't get away from that stuff.
Yeah.
But I believe it did start mostly with the series. It began with, again, back in the early 90s, you go on the Cartoon Network and go see the latest episode of Pokemon. You know.
I think everyone, like regardless of whether they played the games or watched the anime, everyone watched Pokemon, didn't they?
I think everyone even knows Pokemon. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's enormous.
Yeah, even parents, they might not know what it is, and they go, "Oh, that's a Pikachu." They call them Pikachu.
Yeah.
That's a Pikachu, and that's a Pikachu. That's not Pikachu.
So how did you get into it?
Well, the very first game I played mostly was Pokemon Yellow, which was very much an adaptation of the series, in that you could have all the starter Pokemon, which you couldn't do in the previous Red and Blue. And that's really what got me into it. Obviously, back then, it was all about the trading, talking with people, and the secrets. The internet wasn't really that huge of a thing yet.
Yeah, because you could like speculate about it, couldn't you? And
yeah, there was so many myths and things like that.
Even though a lot of them were probably like not real as well, like the Mew being under like a car or something.
The Mew under the truck was definitely a false heron.
Yeah, it was always fun to search because if one day you could do it.
And there were always like glitches as well, like that missing no, like the secret
missing no
Pokemon.
glitch. Yeah, this is all stuff I never knew, because again, you had to have the friends who knew that to know that stuff. These days, everyone knows it because it's all over the internet. But back then, you had to have friends in school. And you always have to talk about it. And of course, you had the link cable. Yeah, if you ever wanted to trade with people, you had to be right there next to each other.
This sounds so old.
Right?
So, for anyone who doesn't know, even though it's enormous, explain what Pokemon is.
Yes, Pokemon, if you don't know, is basically the creator liked bug catching a lot. So the whole idea comes from collecting bugs, and then that adapted into collecting pocket monsters or Pokemon.
Wow, I didn't know that.
You didn't know it was pocket monsters?
I know it was pocket monsters. I didn't know it came from bugs.
Yes. He was as a child, he was a big fan of collecting bugs and going out into the woods and collecting all that stuff. And that's really where it all came from. And from there, it developed into trainer battles. From there, you collect and train them up, and then battle everyone else and see how you compare to everyone else. And then from there, it just exploded with the TV series and the trading card game, and then you got your side games as well.
It's crazy how many avenues it's taken, isn't it? Because you have like the trade. Like I know I was into the games mostly when I was a kid, but I was also into the TV show. But I'd never really got into the cards. Like I don't know why, they just never appealed to me. Like
no, the cards was really, again, not really something I overly have put much time into. Yeah. But then the Mewtwo first movie came out, and you get the card with it as well, and that's really what opened my eyes to it a little bit. I'll be like, all right, I'll collect a few of these. I'll spend a bit of money on this.
It's like similar to the way everyone watched the anime. At some point, everyone's got a couple Pokemon cards just lying around the house, haven't they?
I remember when Detective Pikachu came out, like those cards that were being given away, they went immediately.
Absolutely, yeah. They did not last long. But I've got a collection of, similar to the Detective Pikachu ones, particularly promo ones. I've got a few that's just like, 20th anniversary and things like that. And it's like, well, that's my collection. I don't need a whole folder worth, but I've got a few there.
Like, I think one of the appealing things about Pokemon is that, like, how consistent it is in, like, its games, because you can have people like yourself who get into it from the get-go, from the start, whereas I got into it on its 4th generation with Pokemon Platinum and Diamond and Pearl, which was like 2008 or something like that.
2007 and 8,
2007 and 8, yeah. So like, but I still had like a great experience of Pokemon, even though it was so much more later. Like, what do you think of like newer generations getting into it?
I do find it a little more difficult getting into the newer ones. I've pretty much bought every single generation of game, but as time had gone on, why the core aspects always stay the same, they would always add a little few details.
Yeah.
Of
Some
course,
for better, some for worse, depending on the game.
yes, I could talk at length about Sun and Moon and how they changed so much of the aspect by essentially getting rid of gym battles, which was a core aspect of every Pokemon game. There's always 8 gyms.
They were basically like boss battles, weren't they? As you
Exactly.
move up the game, and they track your progress, basically. So if you can't pass a gym, you don't go to the next stage of the game.
Yes, you can get to the next area or
Yeah,
use a particular move. Some games do allow you to sort of do them in a slightly different order if you really wanted to, but there's essentially an order to it. But Sun and Moon changed that to boss Pokemon, somewhere along the lines, where there's some super powered Pokemon, and that was one in every 2 of them. So I think the second one, after doing one of those, you get to battle at least a trainer that was sort of similar to a gym leader. But that game, I didn't even finish that game, unfortunately.
I totally relate to it, because like I'd never finished it, and that's the one where I really dropped off, because I liked X and Y, which was the 6th generation, and I like that one, but Sun and Moon just turned me off from it. And for me, with Pokemon, I still have a lot of love for the franchise, but the games just feel a bit just too repetitive now. Like, you know, you're just walking through, you get a battle, and you have to go through the battle, and then you get to another person, you battle. I just find like it gets a bit repetitive. Like, do you notice that when you're playing the game?
Oh yeah,
yourself?
there's definitely that aspect, but some people would say like, well, that's what's great about it. You can just switch off and just play, and then suddenly several hours have gone by.
It's not like a inherently difficult game, is it? It's quite relaxing and quite easy to sort of go with, isn't it?
This is a casual curve, and especially with the newer generations, they do sort of hold your hand a lot and make it a bit easier. That being said, I'm playing the current newest game, which is Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. And I've just literally got to a point where it's like, oh, this gym leader's actually pretty good. All the trainers in there seem to have like very competitive teams and movesets that it's actually like, oh, I've not been training up nearly enough. Yeah. And I just managed to force my way through it by using constant revive.
Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. So they're the most recent ones, aren't they? And they were released after Pokemon Go, like in the wake of it. And that's kind of when I got into Pokemon, because like 2016 when Pokemon Go went massive. And I feel like they're trying to like rein in like the new generation, because Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, it's a reboot of Red and Blue, isn't it, the first game?
Yes, it's set in the same area, so essentially is a reboot. Having played through, I don't know, maybe 70% of the game so far now, there is enough differences there. Obviously, they had essentially a deal with Niantic, who make Pokemon Go, and they wanted to incorporate that mechanic and come up with an entanglement where you can trade stuff between the two or what have you. So essentially, they got rid of battling against wild Pokemon in exchange for just throwing a whole lot of Pokeballs at them.
It looks gorgeous, though.
Yeah, it's nice. Very good aesthetically. And to be fair, the throwing the Pokeballs at them, you do still get experience from that, and all your team get it. It's not just whatever battles. So in a way, it does balance out a little.
It's very satisfying as well, because you use the Nintendo Switch's Joy-Cons.
Yes.
You can throw a Pokeball with someone else, and the animation when you both hit the Pokemon is wonderful. It's really great.
Or you can do what I do, just have both controllers in your hand. Woo!
So after Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee came out, they came out with Detective Pikachu, didn't they? And that also looks gorgeous. How did you feel about that?
I feel that this, aesthetically, the film was amazing. They definitely did the right choice in, first off, selecting which Pokemon to include in the movie, and then actually making them relevant to their digital counterparts, to the ones in the game. They didn't try and go too far and go, let's try and make this a realistic lizard. It's like, yes, you can make it realistic, but don't go crazy with it. You know, it's a fire lizard after all.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, I'm talking about Charizard.
It really sits on the line, doesn't it, in between realistic and cartoon in like a really nice way. So it looks like different and not of this world, but still looks natural, doesn't it? It's a really strange combination.
Yes,
I think.
there's so much of that movie that you could just pause and see so much detail in the background, so much love. The only thing that threw me out of it was there was a Lloyd's Bank in the background or one of the scenes. I was like, oh, okay, that's you could have changed that to a Pokemon Bank, but okay, that's fine.
God, Pokemon, get it together. Yeah, so was that a film that you enjoyed? Did you like the Detective Pikachu story rather than following like a trainer like the anime does?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that if they had tried to make an actual Pokemon movie relevant to what we've received before in the animated films, or in the video games, it wouldn't have done nearly as well.
Mm-hmm.
But because
I totally agree.
I mean, you could essentially take out the word Pokemon from the movie title,
Mm-hmm.
and it would still do amazing. And it's because of that they don't focus on that traditional Pokemon story and have gone with more of a investigation detective film that it does well. Although at the same time, I also felt the story was a little bit predictable.
It's a little bit
Plot wasn't
formulaic in
brilliant.
it. But I think the main core of it and the point of it is introducing you into this world and showing you that it's like possible to have
It
this.
definitely feels like a start.
Yeah.
like-
It's like showing we can have this live action Pokemon world and the Pokemon look nice and there's like real fair textures and stuff like that. And I think it's a real good jumping off point for more films like this. And it doesn't even have to be another Detective Pikachu. Like,
Yeah.
you could do a story about like a tournament or something and just set it in this universe. So, what's your favourite Pokemon? Just off the top of your head.
Favorite Pokemon at the top of my head? Oh, how can you even quantify?
I'm going to guess it's going to be one of the first 3 starters or something, maybe.
Actually, no.
No. Oh.
I would say one of my favourite, both in the type that it is, the types of moves it can do, its evolution line, taking into account the style and the design of it as well. I'm a very big fan of Luxray from the 4th generation.
I love Luxray. We'll put a little picture on the screen so you can see Luxray. I caught a shiny Luxray once.
It's funny you say that. I'm currently playing through what is called a randomizer Pokemon game, where you take the file and you essentially just screw around with what Pokemon appear where, what they evolve into.
Oh, you actually change the code and stuff
you can,
like that?
Yeah, there's an app that you can just load in the ROM file, and you can say, I want to randomize Pokemon types, I want to randomize what Pokemon appear anywhere.
That's really interesting, though.
So I'm doing that with Soul Silver at the moment, and this shiny Gyarados, it's always a shiny no matter what it gets randomized to, and it got randomized to a Luxray.
Oh, that's lovely.
So I was very excited to catch that.
That's brilliant.
Until it used the move Roar, which caused it to run away.
Oh,
that was unfortunate.
That's very sad.
So a bit up and down, just in emotions.
And sort of on the same lines, what's your favourite Pokemon? What's your favourite Pokemon game?
As I just mentioned, Soul Silver. It just capitalised everything that had gone before it. It had a great art style. And of course, it includes the whole having a Pokemon walk behind you, being able to go back to the previous game, Kanto, and battle their 8 gym leaders as well.
It was a very long game, but it didn't feel long because you wanted more because it's so enjoyable, isn't it?
But you could easily put 200 hours into that game.
Yeah, that was what was so fun about it.
Just focus on it. And then battle, of course, Red at the very end.
Yeah.
You'd be like, this is the final test.
It's kind of like, it's a really satisfying payoff, isn't it? Because especially when you do put in like a couple 100 hours or something, you get to beat Red at the end, who's like the protagonist of the original game. It's very satisfying.
At the top of Mount Silver with snowing, it's like, this is it, this is the end. And you're like, I'll play another 100 hours, why not?
Yeah, one thing we haven't really touched on yet is the idea of like, you bring up your Pokemon in your game and you sort of travel with them, and in a weird way you do sort of make a connection with them, don't you? And like, you can give your Pokemon nicknames and stuff, and I think that's like one of the most appealing things about it, isn't it?
Well, I think that's also a key aspect of why I like Soul Silver Heart Gold so much, because when that was released, it came with a Pokewalker where you could transfer your Pokemon from the game into a pedometer and then walk with that Pokemon and gain experience and items and all this other stuff. And I remember having that on my belt for a good year. In fact, there's a good possibility I might still have it somewhere.
I think I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, just want to hear a sad story about my Pokewalker thing.
Oh, what's that?
So I bought Pokemon Heart Gold second hand, and it came in that big box that had to fit the Pokewalker in it. I got it out, and they'd wiped the game, obviously, so I could start fresh, but they hadn't wiped the Poke thing, so it still had their Typhlosion on it, but I couldn't get rid of it, and I couldn't use it. I never used the Pokewalker. I can't relate. I was so gutted.
That's ridiculous.
It's so specific.
But yeah, that was essentially the first iteration of what became Pokemon Go.
Yeah, definitely. So, for anyone who like wants to get into Pokemon and wants to try it out, what games would you recommend, or would you recommend going to the TV show or anything?
I would say there's obviously a lot of different generations out there. We're coming up to Generation 8, I believe.
Yeah.
And the way that's ended up working, they tend to do a new one on a new console every couple of years. So personally, myself, my one was Generation 1, the Game Boy and Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
But then after that, there was the Game Boy Advance, and then the DS, and the 3DS.
Yeah, my one was platinum on the DS, and then
The
I
DS,
went back and bought some, and I went forward, and I got the 3DS and the Switch and stuff like that.
I actually ended up skipping Ruby and Sapphire, which I know a lot of people a few years younger than myself, that was their game, and that's the game they love.
Yeah, I'm not big on
I
that
never
one
had
either,
an
really.
Advance,
Yeah,
so that just a game that didn't happen for me. But for people who want to get into it, I would say probably stay away from Sun and Moon at the very least. Maybe a few generations before that.
I was thinking
best.
of like the modern ones, like the modern iterations of Pokemon. I was thinking X and Y could be quite good because I really enjoyed those games, and they still follow a pretty nice formula of like the old ones, but they also feel quite fresh and stuff like that. It's a nice region as well. It's sort of based on Paris, isn't it?
Yes, that's one of the things I loved about that game. Is obviously it's the first like one to mess around with 3D environments. But ultimately, I think it comes down to what you prefer hardware-wise, because obviously the older you go, the more difficult they are to play. I would say definitely don't go any younger than Heart Gold, Soul Silver unless you are aware of the franchise and know what you're getting into with the older graphics.
'Cause it's a bit dated now.
Yes, I mean,
it can definitely
red and blue, while I love it, and including yellow, while I love it when I was playing it, going back is very difficult. Yeah, if you want to look at newer ones, X and Y is a good spot to go into. They don't try and mess around with the formula too much, so it's a very good jumping on point.
Yeah, I don't even think it'd be that expensive at this point because it's been out for a long time, hasn't it? Like a good 5-6 years or something.
Yeah, usually the price doesn't drop usually until 2 generations later, and then you start getting a drop in the price.
Yeah, but if you tried out X or Y and you like the general gist of, training Pokemon and having like a buddy and stuff like that, that's the sort of the best way to get into it and get invested in it, I think. So I think on that note, we'll sort of wrap it up there. So thanks to Kyle, as always, for being my co-host.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks to Cal for coming on and telling us about Pokemon.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, if you have any passions yourself that you want us to talk about, feel free to leave them in the comments below, because we'd love to talk about it.
Or hit us up in the DMs if you want to come on the show yourself.
Yeah, if you want to come on the show to talk about your passion, feel free to send us a message, because we're always looking for people to come on. But other than that, we'll see you next time.
Have a good day.
Bye.